Good. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us in our monthly content roundup. We'll be looking at the content that we've analyzed in June. As you well know, we're on the Cube FM channel, but we are part of LearnCube, formerly known as LearnK8s. I will start sharing my screen so we can see the presentation. Let's see. Very good. Okay. Perfect. So, LearnCube, as you all know, is an organization, or you may know, you may not know, has been around since 2017, helping folks level up their Kubernetes skills. We have a community of just about 500,000 engineers all over the world, and they're made up of different branches in the LearnCube network that you may be familiar with. Cube FM, we also have our newsletter. We have lots of different content streams going out. And this is what we analyze every month is the stuff that's trending across our network, the things that people respond to in terms of impressions, in terms of click-through rate, and the different trends that we see emerging from month to month. As you know, my name is Bart. I'm joining today from California, so we have 3 different time zones. My colleague Amit, where are you?
I am in London today. You want to give me an intro as well there?
Yeah.
I'm in London today, colleague of Bart's from LearnCube. What do I do? I do the less exciting stuff to Bart. I think you'll recognise Bart's face from Cube FM, or hopefully you will anyway. Maybe you won't. Maybe I over exaggerate how popular you are, but maybe not. So I help brands and our sponsors with their go-to-market strategies, helping them engage with the Kubernetes community, particularly through our network. Look at the data, see what's trending, see what's not, and try and help brands create great content so that the community can continue leveling up.
Fantastic. We're also joined today by someone who's in another time zone, close to the Mediterranean, I believe. Henrik, who are you and what do you do? Where are you right now?
I am currently sitting in my office, and you say, where is it? Obviously, it's in France, south of France, close to the Mediterranean. So for people knows, it's between Marseille and Nice, for those who know in details the French geography. My role is I'm working at Dynatrace. I'm a cloud native advocate. I'm also a CNCF ambassador. And I'm building a lot of content. I try to build a lot of content that people consume that at least help people about observability areas, more targeted to observability and maybe sometimes security and also a pinch of Kubernetes as well. So I try to cover most of them.
Much appreciated. Great to have you with us. And we'll be speaking more later on about the content that you create. But as someone who is in the video world, Henrik has incredible taste when it comes to cameras, photography, lighting, be it Kubernetes content or non-Kubernetes content. If you're interested in that world, I highly recommend having him on your radar. As I mentioned, LearnCube is a family of different brands that you can see here on the right. So depending on what your interests are, what your objectives are in the Kubernetes community, we have something for you. If you're looking for a job, we have Cube Careers, we have Cube Events. We'll be speaking about events content as well. Cube Events is where we aggregate all the different things that are going on in the Kubernetes world. If it's online, if it's offline, if you're organizing an event, please get in touch with us so we can help get you additional visibility about that. And of course, Cube FM, we have a regular podcast coming out, as well as the technical interviews, announcements, and things that we do with different brands in the ecosystem. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the insights that we extract from our monthly reports. If you would like to be subscribed to these reports, please get in touch with either myself or Amit, and we can get you added to the mailing list. We will only send you the reports. Your email will not be used for anything else, all right? It's just to get you direct access to these reports that are coming out every month, and so that you can, level up the content that you're creating and better serve the community. Now, let's get into it. So every month we analyze over 2 million impressions of the things that are trending across the different brands that I mentioned previously. And we'll start out with Amit. Let's look at the topics that we had for this month in terms of what did well, the topics that were featured in our brands. Go for it.
Yeah, sounds good. So for those who haven't, I suppose, watched or read our report before, we look at the top trending topics to essentially help brands look at what opportunities there could be within content marketing strategies. So that might be what the community are engaging with the most. It might be what's getting the most visibility, but also where the opportunities are. So if something's actually getting a huge amount of visibility, a brilliant amount of engagement, but actually the content volume is pretty low, we can help support brands and businesses engage with the community through through those areas, which is great for them, but also great for the community because it shows that they're crying out for those pieces of content. So yeah, I think we can see some usual suspects. I think from our topic analysis and what's been trending the most. Resource optimization is always up there, and I think we've got a newcomer with observability, which we'll dive into a bit further. But let's have a quick look at some of these topics in slightly more detail. So yeah, resource optimization every week, guys. But I don't think there will be a week, I should say month, where we do not talk about resource optimization for probably obvious reasons. It's something that is top of mind for engineers, for people creating products, for businesses. In this current economic climate, especially, people are trying to reduce costs, but do more. So, resource optimization is always really high. It has still a very modest content volume. It's relatively low. So whilst there's a massive amount of interest in resource optimization, there's still opportunities for brands to do more.
I have a small question about this piece.
Please
because
go for it.
the resource optimization has been often covered from a pure resources and cost angle, FinOps, blah blah blah, and then there's the other angle that's more sustainability. And do you know? I mean, maybe it's a question that you may not have an answer, but it's more maybe for the communities that is listening. What is the angle that you prefer in the resource optimization? Are you more focused on the energy that you are saving, or on the actual dollars that you're saving? Because I think it's depending. I'm pretty sure that depending on the profile of the person who's reading the content. I'm pretty sure about that.
That's a great point. And I think there's, in a conversation that I had recently before we got started, I mentioned that for our podcast, recently interviewed Dave Masselink, who worked at Google, also worked at Tesla, and now has created a company called Compute Gardener. And so what they're looking at is precisely what you mentioned, is that before you even get started, whether with your cloud provider, with Kubernetes, thinking, about from the perspective of, ethics and responsibility, what will be the impact of the work that I'm doing, given the resources that will be used to get that done. And it is true that there, who doesn't want to save money? Who doesn't want to cut down on costs? So those titles are obviously going to be eye-catching, particularly for stakeholders, more maybe on the side of management or CTOs. But let's say for your average Kubernetes user, what kind of questions are they asking, or what kind of questions should they be asking when it comes to, what duty do we have, to the world that we live in, when it comes to the resources that are being used? And so keeping that in mind, I think from the very beginning, and having that from the get-go, I think is something really worth mentioning as we see increased amount of data centers. And Henrik, you're going to share later about content that you have coming out in August that addresses this more directly. But I think it's something for us to keep in mind in future webinars, perhaps to dive deeper when it comes to resource optimization. Because as Amit mentioned, we've been doing these webinars now since February, and we haven't had one where resource optimization hasn't been mentioned. And we've worked with different brands that are in this space. But I think the point about sustainability is one that can't be overlooked, and I think that deserves some further conversations.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I think just to wrap that up, we do recommend to brands who are looking at this to try and cross-pollinate the content with other categories or other topics. So yes, resource optimization, but from a sustainability angle, resource optimization from a number of different angles, and maybe for perhaps our next report, our next webinar, we can actually look at some of these subcategories within resource optimization to see, what people are paying attention to. Because yeah, I have to say I don't have the data top of mind, but it'd be very interesting to find out.
Good.
Very good. Next focus is networking. Quick mention to networking because I think it's very similar in terms of data from last month. The trend really continues, so the opportunity is still there. Content volume has increased slightly, so who knows, maybe people are listening to me/us, maybe not, maybe it's just a trend, but I don't know. The opportunity is still there for people to engage with networking topics.
And similar, is it going to covering more the gateway API topic related, or service meshes,
Yes.
or
Yes.
or is it going to be
Yes.
specific protocol, or what is there like a narrow? You can also probably go narrow down on the stuff, I guess.
That's true. And Gateway API, because a while back, we did a survey asking people about what their least favorite Kubernetes feature was. And networking, ingress, and network policy management were heavily mentioned. The response, particularly having a conversation with Duffy Cooley from Isovalent, was that that the arrival of Gateway API was going to relieve a lot of that, a lot of those pain points, a lot of that stress. And so there's definitely been an uptick in, and I would say a positive outlook or optimism when it comes to networking in Kubernetes because of that. So we've definitely seen some stuff there. Have you seen anything that's noteworthy in that regard, Henrik?
Yeah, I think the Gateway API is pretty very. I mean, it's quite old. I mean, I think it's not a. It's been released few years back, but there are new updates, and I think what I've seen on when you deal about service mesh, that was a very hot topic a few years back. Now it's like a bit quiet, but bringing service meshes with the Gamma initiatives in the Gateway API, I think people will love it, because I think it's going to be having a unified way of configuring the service meshes, compared to using the specific Easter related CRDs or Linkerd or whatever. I think, I mean, if I was a user that will consume that content, I will definitely look for that. But otherwise, I think all the EVPF, EVPF sniffing and like Humble or other stuff are very interested, bring a lot of interest. People use it because it brings a view on what's going on the network, for sure.
Good. Cool.
Very
Let's keep
good.
moving.
Security. I mean, there are a number of different topics of insecurity that we could dive into. We mentioned, or we brought up as an opportunity last month that what's performing really well is not just technical content, but when brands, content writers, content creators are just taking that step further, and they're actually taking that technical education piece and going into something that's perhaps a guide of hands-on implementation, and we're seeing that massively within security, where the community have very much transitioned from a awareness and education piece to really wanting to engage with hands-on implementation guidance. And we can see that through a number of articles and different pieces of content, click-through rates, where the impressions are great, but the click-through rates really go sky high when there's something practical that the community can follow. So this is a trend, not as strong a trend as we're seeing in security, but a trend across other categories and topics as well. So it is a note for brands or for content writers to see if they can take that next step and say, really help the community level up, so to say, and take them through a problem that they might be achieving right now.
Cool.
Cool. What's next? Observability. So observability is a new topic, I think, if memory serves me correctly, from last month. And whilst they're not volume leaders, the impressions are relatively lower than perhaps you look at it versus resource optimization, for example. The engagement is high, and the content volume is probably one of the lowest, I think, that we've got across the network. So it's something that's happening with the community, and perhaps Bart or Henrik, you can maybe shed some light on why you guys might think that might be happening now, or maybe it's just something that we're seeing as a one-off trend.
Great. I think also, Henrik, can you just give our audience a little bit of background, because you've been creating observability content for a while. I believe your content stream, Is It Observable, started 4 years ago, if I'm
It's after, yeah, it's this week is the 4th anniversary. So
happy birthday.
Congrats.
Congratulations. Yeah, very good. So can you just walk us through sort of like, you got started in this space creating content, why was that? What was the need that you perceived? And then can you just give us a quick overview of how those 4 years have been, in terms of what people are looking for, the kind of stuff that's trended best, etc.
So 4 year exhausting. No. No. I would say that it's a lot of work behind building content. You cannot imagine. But yeah, I would say that when I started, I think I wanted to cover the standards, and my mantra was, there's something out. I won't be the first one talking about it, and try it out. And I think in the observability space, there is a lot of, like you said, people are looking for hands-ons, and there's a lot of very basic examples with basic apps emitting basic metrics or basic traces. And then it's very hard. I mean, at least when I started, it was very hard to get a more complex environments and then like more a real use case and explain that. So then you configure everything in more details, and I think that type of content was very consumed by most of the community. But also the one thing that was very a driver for my channel, and I was not, I didn't think it will be a driver, but I saw OpenTelemetry coming in, and then I started covering everything related to OpenTelemetry, so instrumentation, metrics, logs, and I think people are in their journey of, I want to use this open standards. I don't want to use agents. Even if I use a vendor solution, I want to be using these open standards to my own instrumentation. And I think a lot of people are asking their questions on the way of instrumenting or on the way of building whatever, collecting metrics or whatever logs behind the scenes. So I think that's if you provide content that is more, here is the case. Here is you can collect those things. Here you can save those things. Here is you can filter things, because observability at the end people think it's very expensive, which could be expensive, but at the end there is a lot of best practices behind the scenes. You don't send everything. You need to filter. You need to clean up a bit the data, and I think that is really important. And I think people are have questions in their current journey of I would say open observability journey, I would say.
Clearly so, given the frequency with which you've been putting this stuff out there, the response that you've got from the community. Let's just take a look at observability more in detail regarding the things that we found, and then look very interested to hear more what you have to say about this based on your experience. So, OpenTelemetry obviously cannot be ignored if we're speaking about observability. For folks that maybe don't have background in this, after Kubernetes, I believe, Henrik, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that OpenTelemetry is the second largest project in the CNCF?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's no small achievement, and shows once again a significant amount of interest in the project, from contributors, maintainers, end users, etc. You mentioned EVPF, and we've seen. I feel like I'm an old an old timer saying this. I remember the first CiliumCon in Amsterdam in 2023. But EVPF, we've seen this with different brands that we work with in the ecosystem, and sometimes you hear different narratives around, is the power of EVPF in networking, is it in observability, is it in security? For folks that are interested in hearing more about EVPF, could you maybe share some of the stuff that you've worked on, or the points that nowadays you find most interesting about EVPF, and perhaps also, if you're looking for EVPF content, where do you go to find it?
I think there's a lot of questions behind your
Sorry, I'm too excited. Too much coffee.
So first of all, EVPF is just a layer inside of Linux kernel. You can compare it to JavaScript, I would say. So if people know about a browser where JavaScript could hook up to an event in the browser, I click and then it will trigger something. It's the same thing in the kernel. So we will basically send a small EVPF probe. We will attach it to a kernel functions, to a kernel event, to something that happens in the kernel. So you may say, what type of event? For example, every time I write in a file, or every time I receive a packet on my network card, or every time I open a process, then this program will be triggered. It's usually a very lightweight program, sitting in the kernel, collecting data, and then shipping it to like a common storage between the user space and the kernel space in Linux, called BPF maps. So you will write there, and then there's another program in the user space that will pull out the data that has been collected, and they do something about it. That's why, because it's based on events, that's why it's so popular in security. So I see something suspicious on the process, then I can block it. And that's the power of BPF. And usually the first version, BPF, which was already there since many years, was used for any firewall or any any firewall, software firewall on our computers to do that. So detecting a package and then dropping it. Of course, observability as by nature, because you're looking at things and then you're storing it. It's based by nature is going to be an observability also framework, a great observability framework for that. So I think that's why. And for in general, EVPF is so popular, and I think because Kubernetes brings the standardized version of kernel across version providers, it's great to use that, rely on that technology, so then you can start getting more observation on your system without having something that pulls, because you don't have to pull anymore the data. You have something that is triggered when something happens. I think that's very powerful. If you want to learn about EVPF, there is a website called that is the EVPF. So the actual website, I can search for that. It's EVPF. There is a website called EVPF.io, listing all the projects that is basically utilizing EVPF technology. So that's a good start. And then, of course, if you want to go further and writing your own program, I would say, yeah, if you love C language and if you love the kernel, then go for it. But then it's kind of a complicated journey. You don't improvise writing your code like this. And so that's why I would say try to learn how it works. You can also look at my content. I've built some few content that are very simple about explanations. And also, if you want to know which solution use EVPF, there's Inspector Gadget from CNCF. There's a Tetragon from Cilium on the CNCF landscape. There's plenty of solutions now that use EVPF. But I would say bad EVPF code is dangerous because the thing, and also if you run too many EVPF probes, at the end what happens is that, remember, Kubernetes is using kubelet to figure out if the nodes are healthy, and kubelet is only looking at the user space, and EVPF is on the kernel. And then if too many EVPF probes running, your kernel is dead. So and the kernel is dead, and the node is dead, and then the Kubernetes is not responding. So I think there's a very important aspects of making sure the EVPF program is safe and reliable and not expensive in terms of CPU, because otherwise you will have some ghost running on the background. So I would say start using different tools and use EVPF.io as a source. I think it's a great way of starting.
Fantastic. And like you said, very helpful. And having looked at your YouTube channel already, you have some great stuff out there for folks that want to get started, and then lots of opportunities to expand on that through the different avenues that you mentioned. Also, looking here at this slide, the different ways in which people are sharing their content, and you've also seen this through the videos that you do. But nowadays things, short form content, whether it's for LinkedIn, whether it's for YouTube Shorts, we see that that's doing quite well. No surprises as people try to stand out in that area. People, we also have people in our community that are using TikTok to reach their audiences. I always find myself, once again, to be quite old for TikTok, but it's very effective, in terms of getting those short ideas out there and then drawing people's attention to perhaps longer form content, whether it's in the form of a blog or a video. So yeah, great stuff there all around. Let's keep it moving. So in terms of, we saw this in our last content report as well, but if content around events. So like I said, we have Cube events where we aggregate all the stuff that's going on in the Kubernetes ecosystem, but we've seen quite a bit going on in the way of events. I know Henrik has also been quite active in some of the KCDs. We always run into each other as well at KubeCons. I'm going to be heading out to KubeCon India actually in just about 10 days. But Amit, would you like to comment on this more in detail?
Yeah, sure. So I think we, like I said, we see so many brands who have events as a core part of their go-to-market strategy, content strategy, and in terms of the community really value these events. There are so many throughout the calendar year, not just the KubeCons, which there are now more of, and there's more of for a reason, because people are engaging with them, but the KCDs and other smaller events, small niche events perhaps that driving. But what we've seen in particular, and we've noticed this trend for a little while, and we wanted to pull it out, is that content relating to these events is performing exceptionally well. However, and Bart, you can kind of just scroll through the next kind of three, I suppose. However, there's a common theme that, whilst there's super high engagement, the impressions are still relatively low. I say relatively low, they're minimalistic at the moment. They're really low, which shows I suppose the lack of perhaps investment in time or effort or perhaps other resources to be able to push that content out there with some events, not all, but some. And so this really represents an opportunity for brands because brands, they put a lot of time, effort, money, human resources into either sponsoring these events, attending the events, or putting the events together, that we think it's such a shame that perhaps the opportunity for the brand to make the most out of it from a content marketing perspective isn't always taken on board. But if you don't mind going to the next slide. So therein really lies the opportunity. What we would love to see is get these, if the engagement rate is so high, which it is, put the effort in to create more impressions, to get content out there more so that the people who are visiting the event, the people who are engaging with your content, and we have to remember, a lot of people they might be flying, they might be traveling abroad, they're putting a lot of effort in to attend the event. And so there's no wonder why the actual content itself from the event is so engaging, because those who join, they want to follow up, they want to know what's going on, they don't want to just live it in that event or that day that they're there, but they might want to actually follow up in the next day or actually in the lead up to the event, see some content that's going on as well. So we would very much like to encourage brands who are investing so much in these things to think about a content strategy that might be leading up to, during, and after the event to really maximize the investment you're putting in. And I think if you can do that, could do pretty well in terms of engaging the community.
Absolutely. And I think that it's important to keep in mind that an event is where you provide a context with a significant amount of people that are leaders in the space. Utilize that to your advantage, as Amit said, both before, during, and after. If you check out Henrik's content, you can see all the stuff that he does around, vlogs. Do I say vlog? Do I say vlog? I think I'm also age checking myself by saying that. But I think it's a wonderful way to put those things together to show, because events are very intense, things happen very quickly. So having a nice piece of content like with what Henrik does, to see exactly what happened, the people that you interacted with, as a way of putting all those things together, I think can be very nice. And yeah, so like I said, encourage folks out there that are doing this to keep that in mind. Henrik, anything you'd like to add about events before we keep going?
I was just wondering if so you said if the organizer organized like a live stream, is it something that could have a positive impact on in terms of impression, engagement? Because at the end, pre-event, maybe you can just say, "Hey, I've got this venue, or we got this lineup," and then post you do like a small of a wrap up with different pictures or a video, whatever. But in between in the conference, usually people record and then publish the recordings through YouTube. But having like a small, I don't know, 30 minutes live stream during the conference, do you see anything around that?
I think it's a great idea, because you get people that can't maybe go in person, they get to see the buzz, they get to sort of travel to the place that you're going, and also can be a way to get quite a few people to cycle through quite quickly, and perhaps to address things that aren't being addressed in their talks, to ask a series of people the same question. There are different ways that can be leveraged. I think it can be quite lightweight. It doesn't have to be a full-on TV studio setup to get that moving. So yeah, I think that could definitely be beneficial. Let's keep going, because I know Amit has to drop in a couple of minutes. So just going over things that we noticed. Resource optimization still very strong. Cost and performance, as Henrik mentioned. What about the sustainability side of this? In terms of the resources that are being used, it's not all just dollars and cents, but thinking about the impact this is having both now as well as in the future. I know that you have a piece of content that's going to be coming out about this in August. Henrik, would you like to shed some more light on that?
Yeah, if people are afraid about using the huge usage of LLM systems across the world, there's a very interesting library called Ecologits. So I'm going to deep dive about let's measure the footprint of our LLM, because at the end we are consuming energy, and people needs to be aware of LLM is not free, and it comes with energy and price behind the scenes.
Very good. Looking forward to that coming out. As we mentioned as well, security content. We're seeing this again and again and again. But what is it that's actually going to connect with people? What is it that people are caring about? And how does this information need to be presented in a way that shows value, potential value for the folks that are going to be implementing it? Then infrastructure, in terms of content saturation, we see lots of stuff going out, but it's not really hooking people. So it shows that there's got to be a different way to be more efficient with that content that's going out there. If you're going to take the time to create it, make sure that you test it with a couple folks, not just from your own organization, but from outside, to get that feedback and see, if it's really clicking or speaking to the problem that you think people are having. And then, like we said, event content. Is it useful? Of course it is. Sometimes it can be very local. To what extent do you want to, be interacting with other event organizers so you can, cross-pollinate, see the things that are working, that will get a higher rate of engagement from the people that are attending, as we spoke as well, to get both before, during, and after. So in terms of next steps for folks that are out there creating content, obviously talk to us. We like to talk about this all the time with the different brands we work with, the people in the ecosystem. So don't be shy. If you want to sign up for these reports, if you're not signed up yet, please let us know so we can get you added to our mailing list. In terms of the things we see in security, this trend keeps coming back every single month. And I think next month in August, actually going to bring someone who specializes in security to take that further. Looking at performance around infrastructure, like I said, optimizing that to make sure that it's going to get the engagement that you want. In terms of events, we spoke about that at length regarding what's the best way to maximize the context that you're creating, perhaps throwing in a live stream, as Henrik mentioned. Platform engineering, still seeing this as a trend, but what we've seen month after month is where you can find overlaps, with different areas in the Kubernetes ecosystem. And, as we've been around since 2017 through LearnCube, we know that what people want is technical content with no BS, with no fluff, with no sales, helping people solve the problems, tackle the issues that they're facing on Kubernetes. So like I said, that's what we had today for our webinar. I'd like to thank the organizations, the brands that we're working with currently to help them engage better with our community. If you'd like to know more about how you can do that, of course, you can let us know. Henrik, we will leave links when we share this on LinkedIn to Is It Observable. We thank you very much for your time and all the work you do for the community to help folks level up and to share knowledge. Is there anything else that we should know about what's next for you, apart from the piece you have coming out about AI?
Vacation. Big
yes,
vacation.
Much better news.
Vacation, and then I will work on different content. I think there's a lot of things popping up in the AI world, and I want to provide something that will be actually useful. Again, still related to observability, of course.
Very good.
Very good.
And a much needed breath of fresh air in the AI space where we see far too much hype. Amit, I hear you're going on holiday as well. Tell us about that.
I am kind of like, you put me on the spot now because I'm definitely not going anywhere as exotic as probably Henrik, but I'm going away, basically it's a parent and kids holiday. So, let me end it there. I think everyone will get their little violins out for me, but
and I wasn't invited. I'm not a kid.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Oh, I am. I'm quite sure that I am on the cusp of 40. But thanks, folks, for joining. Always nice to hear about things that are going on and to get fresh perspectives like, Henrik, someone who's been creating content and has been thinking about the very things that we looked at here about, am I addressing people's needs? How can I, read the room and figure out what problems need to be solved, what people are looking for, getting involved in something like observability, which is a vast ecosystem. And like I said, open telemetry, second biggest project in the CNCF. Folks, thank you very much. You can expect us back around the same time in last week of August. Well, probably around this date. So yeah, either second to last week or last week of August, we'll be able to share dates with you soon. So you can have this on your calendars. Thanks a lot, folks. Take care. Good.